Our Service Delivery Committee meeting today, the 29th of August, which will cover the Te Ararimu Kihikihi Pathway Pedestrian hearing report. So first of all, do we have any apologies? No, excellent. Any disclosure of members' interests? Thank you. Late items? No. And confirmation of the order of the meeting? Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Bruce. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. So now we have our hearing report, which is on page 6 of our agenda. And we have Brian Hudson here to introduce the item for us. So yeah, over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So while this paper before you is around creating cul-de-sacs or pedestrian malls to facilitate this walking and cycling project, I just wanted to quickly introduce the project to give you a bit of background to it. So in 2020 and 2021, we created the Urban Kihikihi Urban Development Plan and did consultation with the community. Quite extensive consultation where we got quite strong feedback from the community that they wanted council to improve pedestrian safety around the town at intersections and to formalise bus stops. The community also wanted increased opportunity for walking and cycling. They wanted us to address traffic speeds on some streets and intersection safety concerns. And they highlighted walking and cycling safety problems, particularly for people to and from the school, pupils to and from the school. So that was back in 2021 when that urban development plan was published after all of that consultation. And then, of course, in 2022, council went out with significant public consultation on a transport strategy for the district, for the whole district. And that had objectives of prioritising lower carbon transportation solutions, improving access and mobility, providing safe transport routes and supporting community aspirations. So that's sort of our policy and strategy. And then in terms of developing this project, in September last year, the Community Board and Service Delivery prioritised this as a project and endorsed this route for the walking and cycleways in Kihikihi. And then there was a broad community consultation in February this year where there were 44 submissions with a majority in support of building walking and cycling pathways in Kihikihi with 64% support. And then more recently, this pedestrian mall consultation, which helps to facilitate the construction of the project, where consultation ran for a month, middle of June to middle of July, where we have 149 submissions and a number of submitters who have come along today to give their submissions verbally as well and support. So with that introduction, I'll hand it back to the chair for the next part. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? And of course, this has all come about because we were fortunate in getting that SURF funding, that climate emergency response funding, which was really brought forward the project. Yeah, thank you. So now we're going to be hearing our submitters. And I'd just like to give a warm waipa welcome to those presenting their oral submissions today. Councillors are keen to hear your views and we're trying to keep things informal so that the stress levels stay low. When it's your turn, please come forward to the chairs that we've provided and there's a microphone for you to use. It'll be working when the green light shows. You'll have 5 minutes speaking time and a warning bell will go at 4 minutes to give you time to wrap up. Councillors may wish to ask you questions, which is a good thing. And once all submitters have presented, we'll be having a short break and then we'll move into deliberations. Submitters are welcome to come back for those deliberations. They are open to the public. So with that, I'd like to invite our first submitter, which is Nick Murphy. Oh, he's online. All right. Welcome, Nick. I can't see your face, but I'm presuming you're there. Would you like to introduce yourself? There you go. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Morena koutou, my name is Nick Murphy and I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my wife Anna and my 1-year-old son Ted. We've lived in Kihikihi since October 2020. We love it here and we live on the corner of Whitaker and Whitmore Street. At number 51. I'm talking today in support of the proposed, the designs that have been shared with the community. I understand that, it's great to see a lot of people getting up and talking about it. Since October 2020, Brian and probably Dawn can vouch for this. I've been on top of the council due to speed issues that I have and have witnessed regularly, daily. And it's quite odd to see a lot of kids walking and cycling to school in the morning and large vehicles going at speeds that I would definitely say are not 40 or 50k an hour. It's complete opposites and doesn't mix well. We use a lot of the footpaths to get around the village quite often. And as I'm thinking, not just for now, but into the future, one day my son is going to be out there riding around, whether it's to friends or popping across the road to the school. I think that this council have a chance to be brave and show some leadership with an innovative solution. I still remember going to the town hall where the designs were first put out to the public. And as being a local government employee myself with another council, I was really surprised at how brave with the designs the team had been. I was kind of a little bit lost for words, actually. I hadn't really thought of anything like this. So I am in support of making the cul-de-sacs, even though some people will say it'll create more discomfort for us having to drive out a separate way to get out of the village. To be honest, if it's going to potentially save some lives or some serious injuries, I'm all for it. It's going to take an extra 15, 30 seconds out of my day, maybe a couple of cents of petrol here and there, or how about I walk places? So I'm gonna leave it at that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Nick. Great to hear from you. Any questions from the councillors? So I'm getting the message from you that safety is really important, that you want kids to be able to get to school without any worries, and excellent.
Yep. Build it and they will come, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes, Marcus has got a question.
Sure. Hi, Marcus.
Hey, what do you think it'll do for your surrounding areas, like your property value and stuff like that? Do you think it'll turn your streets and like the community into a more desirable place to live because of the cul-de-sacs?
I do think so. I'm just thinking about the cul-de-sac being right out front of our house. Some, people saying that it will be a pain. I think it's a great thing. I can imagine and visualize my son and his friends playing out there in the future. It's going to be a safe space. I think that it'll really help with the concerns that have been raised.
Excellent, thank you. And just comment on the design, which you said was quite innovative. It is best practice, I think, from Waka Kotahi that they do see the cul-de-sacs as the safest option and I guess the best design feature. But I'll probably invite our transportation staff to give those kind of comments when we're in our deliberation stage. Anyway, thank you very much, Nick. Really appreciate you coming along and letting us hear what your thoughts are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you. And so now we have Diane Pairata. Is she here? No, okay, all right. She doesn't appear to be here at the moment. So we'll just go on to Jennifer Smith if she's here. This is a bit of a surprise. Yeah, okay. Yes, and now we're sort of getting a bit ahead of ourselves. So I'm not sure whether or not we have people there. Yeah, just take a short break. Councillors, we'll just wait to see. Oh, you've got someone there? Number 9, Mariette. Jeff Boxall's here. Yeah, I've got Mariette Branson is. Okay, looks like we want to maintain order. Yeah, just anyway, Claire's just seeing whether or not there are any others. She'll give me an update. Oh, Paul Martins is here. All right. So I'll invite Paul. Yes, come forward, take a seat, please. Good to see you here today. And your submission is on page 21 of our agenda. Yes, please. I'd like you to sit down, make yourself comfortable. That's right. And the microphone has got that green light, which means it's going to be working for you, but you might like to just bring it a bit closer to your face. Yeah, that's right. Excellent. Thank you.
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. My name is Paul Martins, and I come here today to speak in favour of the proposal to erect the cul-de-sacs in Kiki. We've lived in Kiki for approximately 13 years, and during that time we've experienced a massive increase in housing. Many of the street blocks had paddocks contained within them, and they have now nearly all transformed into intensive housing areas, along with the many subdivisions of existing properties. The ripple effect of this increase in housing comes with an increase in population, including the many young families and small children. And as such, I have noticed an increase in foot traffic. Often these children use the berms and sometimes the road to play on. And be that as it may, we all like children not to play on the road, but it happens. It is unfortunate to see many people driving their cars at high speeds through the residential areas. And I have witnessed some near misses involving children close to the roadside. I think that the cul-de-sacs will effectively reduce the amount of through traffic on various streets, and that are to have the cul-de-sacs, and thereby creating a safer environment for all to live within. I do not think that the suggested inconvenience of having to travel another block over to exit Kiki is a valid reason for objecting, considering the safety benefits that would be achieved otherwise. The street we live in is frequently driven on at night by speeding motorists. We often hear their loud and screaming engines, and we wait for the noise of a crash. Many times there has been big skid marks and other evidence on the berms that indicate the loss of control. And I think of what might have been if somebody was to have been walking in those areas at that time. The Rollinson Street has become a very busy road over time, and I've noticed a marked increase in the amount of large truck and trailer units that use this road as a shortcut between Arapuni Road and Golf Road. A great number of these trucks display the yellow H sign, and as such should not be travelling on residential roads. And I'm not sure whose job it is actually to police that, but it appears that it's not being policed at all. The speed at which both cars and trucks drive along Rollinson Street is alarming, and I have often thought that speed humps or other types of speed reduction devices such as chicanes or islands should be installed to mitigate the frequency of these speeding motorists. Rollinson Street is, after all, a high residential street. In the concept of, is the concept of forbidding trucks travelling on this road a tangible idea? And I'll put that to council. Also, with the building of a roundabout on Rollinson Street and Herbert Street, will it be big enough to cater for the large truck and trailer units, or will we see more damage to the roundabout signs by them cutting in as they get around, as we witness in many roundabouts in Te Awamutu? We live at the end of a street that's going to be blocked off, but we do not see this as any inconvenience at all, as I believe that these cul-de-sacs will create a safer and quieter urban dwelling area for most residents, and therefore I'm very much in forward of this happening. And my main concern is one of safety. Kiki has very large berms, wide berms, and which is naturally inviting for small people. to play on. And many of the streets only have footpath on one side, and therefore creates a natural recreation area for children and other people alike. I spent many years in the New Zealand Fire Service as Deputy Chief Fire Officer, and I've had to attend accidents that involved cars versus pedestrians, and it's never nice. There's usually only one winner. Yeah, again, I support the concept, and in doing so, I'd like to thank you for your time and efforts. Ngā mihi nui. Ka kite anō.
Thank you, Paul. I'll just quickly see whether or not anyone would like to ask you any questions.
Sure.
But no, and definitely sorry, I've got Paul, Roger, and then Mayor Susan.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Which street do you actually live on? I'm sure it's in there. But
Bryce Street.
Bryce Street. Yeah, jolly good. In your comment about Wollaston Street and the others that circuit this bigger block, are you suggesting that there should be other speed mitigation measures introduced?
Yes.
As well as what kind of mitigations?
Well, either through speed hump or chicanes, there is a argument to and from, and the fact that if you slow down for a speed hump, then there is some noise created by the acceleration on the other side. But frequently I've seen cars and trucks go down there at breakneck speeds. We're talking in excess of 80 k's, and it's so anything that inhibits high speed would be welcome along that street, especially between Whitmore and Herbert.
Yeah, and as another question on a different aspect, have you actually worked out how much longer this would add to your journey?
Well, we live only a couple of houses from the end that's going to get blocked off, so we would have to go to Hall and then go to Herbert and then back up again to the proposed roundabout. And gosh, if that was to take an extra 30 seconds, I'd be surprised. And so far as we're concerned, that time is irrelevant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Susan?
No, kia ora. Look, Roger stole my question. I want to know where you lived. Thank you. No, thank you for your submission.
Kapai.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And we've made a note of those points you made about safety, which we can bring up in our deliberations. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to invite Barbara Waters to come and give her. Oh, sorry, Lou. Good morning. Welcome, Barbara.
Good morning. I don't have my submission on me.
That's right. We do have a copy of yours, which is on page 21 of our agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and do move that microphone closer to you so that we can hear you. Yes, you've got 5 minutes, and a warning bell will go at 4 minutes just to give you time to wrap up.
Thank you. All right. Well, hopefully I can't remember everything that's in there, but basically I'm not necessarily for it. I'm probably more against it. We live on the corner of Herbert and Hall, so we're going to be affected by all these cul-de-sac closures because everyone will come to our corner and there will be a lot more traffic. It's already quite a noisy intersection, a lot of burnouts, a lot of people cutting corners. It's not a wide street, it's quite narrow and it's only got curb and channeling on one side, so grass on the other, which is often things. So to me, I probably don't feel the people that have been affected the most have been consulted. I mean, I didn't even know about some of these questions previously. So I feel that myself and my neighbours who are going to be affected, I'm not necessarily against the cul-de-sacs, but I'm more against the fact that everyone will then come to our corner, which of course will make a lot more traffic, a lot more noise. And I moved there 34 years ago and it was nice and quiet and peaceful. Yes, it's got busier now and there's a lot more traffic, but my kids also went to school there and they walked and biked. I think as far as safety goes for the kids, if we all, yes, the speeding cars is huge. I mean, Rolleston Street, every day I walk that bike path, and every day I yell at someone. I pull out of the intersection in front of people. One of these days I'll probably get hit, but it frustrates the crap out of me that people start from, it doesn't matter which way they come, they're still doing 80 Ks or more.
Yeah.
They don't slow down coming into the 50, and by the time they get there, they're speeding. And to me, cul-de-sacs are an issue. I mean, are not necessarily going to fix the speeding. Herbert Street is another one. They drive down there at, like, I sit in my spa pool at night, and they're doing well in excess of 80 Ks, and they're just flying. And Rolleston Street's the same. Probably, I'm thinking Oliver Road might be also another one. So those to me are the problems. And unless we do something about the speeding, and I didn't realise about the trucks, the speeding on especially some of those roads. I mean, here you are saying the bike path is coming in and then we're going to cross over. Unless you have lights or something to stop people, actually stop the vehicles, then it's always going to be a problem. I don't know how else you can slow them down. I do know that the police have been there recently, but if it's not there constantly, it's not going to happen. Also just up the road from me is a new playground, the John, whatever it's called. Yeah, absolutely fantastic, but there is no parking. It's just mud and slush. And if they park on Hall Street, people drive up our road, past our place, and then there's a little dip. Someone's going to get hit there. So, you know, there again, it's to me, it's all about the speeding and getting people to slow down, which will then make it safer for our children. I mean, I don't have, but I still have my grandchildren, and we walk up the roads and all over the place. So, and my grandchildren bike around Kiki when they come to stay. So those are probably more my things. I hadn't heard a lot of people agreeing to it and saying it was good. I've only read what's in Facebook, and most people have sort of been quite negative about it. I'm not necessarily against it. I know some people will have to go further, but you're converging everyone, especially like for me, my corner, and I reckon it's going to make a big difference. I know there's a lot of people who couldn't attend today because they're working, so I know we've got to have it during the day. And I'm not quite sure of what the questions have been asked about those that have sort of agreed to it. So that's just been one of my things. But for me, I'm one of the ones affected as far as the extra traffic. But unless we get the speeding fixed, to me, it's not going to work.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. In fact, that theme about speeding has come through in quite a number of the submissions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably be turning our attention to that when we're in our deliberations. Now, I have a question. Roger?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Barbara, thank you for your comments. You say you're not against what's happening in terms of the cul-de-sacs. That's okay, but it is a concern that you have, and I can totally understand, of the speeding and the traffic along that road by your house. Would you be happier if there were some speed mitigation measures introduced onto that road to try and manage the speed?
Oh, look, you have to do something. I mean, the young boy racers drive down there like idiots. And if those that have been past the Kiki Domain on the road frontage there, they just drive their cars through there. And I mean, there's ruts like this now. I see the other day I came home from my bike ride and someone's deposited some very large concrete. And I went, yes, someone's going to get them. But yes.
The other thing as well with the children, is there a crossing near that children's playground?
No, well, it's on, there's only curb and channeling on one side of Herbert Street, the other side's, there's nothing.
But you would be happy if there was some speed mitigation measures introduced on that road? Oh,
Herbert Street, something on Rolleston Street as well. And I can't speak for Oliver Road because I don't go down that road, but I often cross it and it's quite a busy. When they come in from Arapuni Road, they'll sneak down the first one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. No other questions? I'll look very carefully this time. Okay, thank you, Barbara. We really
Awesome.
appreciate you coming along
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you. And now we have Stuart Phillip. Stuart Phillips. Oh, yeah. Oh, wonderful. Welcome, Stuart. Please
Good
take a
morning,
seat. Yeah,
councillors.
good to see you here. And your
my age,
submission
I've
is
gotta
on
have-
page 35.
I've got to have hearing aids and glasses and everything else. But thank you for the opportunity to participate in the democratic process. My name is Stuart Phillips and I live on Flat Road and I've only been there 7 or 8 years. Now I'd like to speak first about the existing cycleway. And my observations are brilliant, brilliant. And I think council can be well pleased with the existing cycleway because, number one, it adds safety. Who in their right mind would want to ride a bicycle down Flat Road? I don't know. It is so narrow that even it's risky driving a bloody car down. So yes, a very good thank you. I notice there are crossings on Golf Road and McGee Road, which don't provide in an 80k area, and they had a lot of heavy traffic, and they don't seem to provide any problems whatsoever, because people know that if they're going to go out on that road and cross, they're going to get hit by a logging truck or something. So the main thing coming out of the existing cycleway, it is good because it separates the cyclists from the motorists. And I think any walkway or cycleway, you've got to do that. You can't have intermingling. It doesn't work. It never has worked anywhere. The other observation I would make about the cycleway, it is used on fine weather and certainly not at night, except for people that shouldn't be using it at night. So whether you want to put a whole lot of money into, I'm not against cyclists, and I'm not one myself, but whether you want to put a whole lot of money into cycleways when potholes should be fixed. This is a question that the council had to look at. Now, getting on to the proposal, I think all the areas that they want to block off are now covered with stop signs. But do they stop? So then you have to look at what's the next remedy. Humps. And I think humps, particularly if they were nice and big, would ruin quite a few cars travelling at speed. The other problem I see is the roundabout on Herbert and Rolleston Street, where I live. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I think if you can get a roundabout in there that's agreeable to all people, not just cyclists. The other thing is, I think the cycleway should be on the berms, and I would also think that they should be on the western side of Rolleston Street, not the eastern side. And I wonder if council engineers have had a look at that, because I don't think putting in little wee car parks where 2 or 3 cars can park solves any problem for anybody. So I think speed humps will overcome a lot of the problems. And perhaps a roundabout in Herbert Street and one at the Oliver Street there. So I'm just saying to council, be wise with how you spend your money, because there ain't going to be a lot of money around in the next day or two. I know people would like cycleways and they would like this and they would like that, but in reality, things ain't going to be what they were when we thought about the scheme 5 years ago. So bear that in mind. And with that, thank the council for the opportunity, and be prudent with your spending, because it's my money as well as yours. And it doesn't matter if I'm a taxpayer or a ratepayer, it's still my bloody money. And safety is the other thing.
Thank you, Stuart. It's been great to have your words of wisdom to spur us on our way as we're navigating this complex decision. Now, are there any questions from the councillors? No, I think you've covered it pretty well. Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you,
Thank
councillor.
you. Okay, thank you. And now we have Julia Wilcox. Would you like to come forward? Welcome, Julia. There's a seat down there for you. Yes, and there's a microphone for you to use as well. I'm not sure if you were here earlier for my introduction, but you'll have 5 minutes speaking time, and there will be a warning bell at 4 minutes to give you about a minute to wrap up. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And your submission is on page 24 of our agenda. Thank you.
I wondered, I would say, please don't carve our community up with cul-de-sacs. My daughter we live in Rolleston Street. My daughter is in Bryce Street. And when I had a fall, she was there within moments. If you put a cul-de-sac at the end of Bryce Street, that's not very convenient for me, but that's just me. I wonder whether you have actually asked the police, the ambulance, and the fire brigade how they feel about this. I'm a retired midwife. I know we've got a lot of young families moving in. I know that an obstetric emergency can be a matter of minutes. A woman can lose up to a litre of blood a minute. If the ambulance has to go all around the houses to get to her, it could be devastating. You could lose 2 lives. House fires and domestic violence are all minute dependable. And you're going to send people all around the houses to get to the people that might be needed, might need help. I just feel that the money is being used in the wrong places. Car parks along Rolleston Street for a cycleway and walkway that may or may not be used. The people that really cycle, you know, with the posh cycles and they won't use the cycleway because it's not good for their tires. A lot of other people use it, but does it need to come right through the village? And that's about all I've got to say. Except that off-street parking is really, really needed around that park. It's a wonderful park, and it's used almost as long as it's not raining, there'll be people there. So instead of putting off-street parking along Rolleston Street, for goodness sake, put it near the park.
Thank you. That's all you wanted to say? Yeah, I was going to say, it's been great having people come along and highlight the urgent need for some parking around that playground. Yeah, other people have spoken to that this morning as well. And I think I've heard that you're really concerned that whatever changes are made, that it has to be really usable for emergency services, whether it's ambulance, police, or fire and things like that. And so we will be following that up and making sure that those services have been all over this plan as well. Yeah, so we're not disadvantaging people in the future. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you. Okay, All right, and now I'd like to invite Mariette Branson to come forward. Welcome, Mariette. Thank you. Yes, so you've got 5 minutes speaking time. You probably heard that. Yes. Okay, so yeah, take it away. I'd like to hear what you've got to say.
Right. Good morning, guys. Before I do start, I just want to say thank you to you guys for fixing the potholes on Ralston Street. They were a bit of a, how shall I put it, hazard for tires. Thank you. And for the bollards at the end of our section of Hall Street, because they're using through to Sheehan as a boy racer HQ. And this is, so we live on Hall Street, the other end of Hall Street, where there was a cul-de-sac, where they're now putting all those myriad of houses. And so if you put a cul-de-sac on that end of Hall and this end of Hall, you know, I've got two cul-de-sacs, and I can see boy racers coming down, using that and going up again. It's down a hill, it's not practical, it's not going to work. The speed thing is a problem because Whittaker at night, 2 in the morning, 12 o'clock at night, it's a racetrack. You can hear them coming down and they are not doing, they're speeding because they go right through to Arapuni and you can hear them from a distance. And one day someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get hit. So speed, please sort it out. Speed bumps, I'm all for them. By all means, put them in, please. ASAP, the sooner the better. Cul-de-sacs, they're not going to solve anything because the traffic flows already around Kiki as it is. You disrupt that, you're going to have problems. You're going to, it's not going to work. They're not going to work. I'm not sure what else you can do. Maybe slow us down somehow. Try that. But the cul-de-sacs, I'm against them. I can't talk for Bruce and Oliver and even the one in Ralston. It doesn't make sense. Why put one? It doesn't make sense. It's a throughway through to Sheehan, through to get to Otorohanga. So yeah, but this is me. Our neighbor on the corner also, he was like very against it. My husband is like, why do you want to do that? Why? So yes, this is my submission. Yeah, but all for speed bumps, if you can slow people down, please do, especially on that main road to Arapuni, because people, it's a hazard. We've got boy races coming down there as well. So yeah, and that's all I really have to say. So.
Okay, thank you, Mariette. Now I've got a question here from Roger.
Yes, just rather a clarification. Understandable, speed is a problem. That's your big issue.
Yes, my biggest issue.
That's acknowledged, and I think we've obviously registered that.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything against the cul-de-sacs from you. You can't.
Okay.
You don't see whether they will solve the problem.
They won't solve.
Anything else against them?
They will disrupt the traffic flow. Right now, we've got our throughways through Kiki. You know, you can go through to Cambridge, you can go to Otorohanga. It will cause more traffic jams than anything else. And in my view, I don't see them working. Why do you want to block off little, why? It doesn't make sense in my head why you want to do that. If you want to spend money, do something else. I'm not sure what that, I'm sorry, I can't get another solution. But I don't see them working. We've lived in that house for 18 years. So it's not like I'm just moved in. We've been there for 18 years and our street was quiet, very quiet until when the cul-de-sac a turnaround. Those cul-de-sacs become turnarounds and you're going to have problems because we have boy races in there doing stuff and then speeding off again. Okay. So yeah.
No, thanks for that extra detail about the cul-de-sacs.
Could I have a point of clarification, please, from one of our, from Brian, perhaps? Brian, Hall Street, we can see that there's a turnaround and a cul-de-sac to the south. Is the road still open at the top, at the northern end? We've got a diagram that's actually on top of that intersection.
It is that roundabout. Yeah. Brian, could you get to a microphone, please, to answer that question? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So Hall Street at the moment has one cul-de-sac at the very southern end. So there's a gap between the end of Hall Street and Sheehan Street. So they don't meet, although there was a problem with trucks and vehicles just driving through across the grass and made it into a big muddy mess. And so recently there's been bollards put across there to stop that happening.
And what's on the northern end?
At the northern end, it has a T intersection with Herbert Street.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It is open at the northern end. Yeah, okay, good,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Did you have something, Liz?
Not really. I guess I was just interested. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you here. Been a long time. So did you attend any of the open days at the Kiki Hall or the school? Only because the like some of the reasons for cul-de-sacking and the why, because I can hear in your voice you really want to know the why. You know why we're doing it, and perhaps we haven't had the opportunity to explain that. Yeah, so I just wondered if you'd attended the Kiki.
I didn't know about them for starters, as I would have gone happily. I did not know about them. But yes, I was just wondering if I can ask you guys, why do you want to, why the cul-de-sacs? I mean, isn't there something else we can do? Could we maybe do pedestrian crossings there, or rise the street up? Because in Hamilton, they have this massive hump that if you go 50, you just go over the hump. But if you're going faster, you damage your vehicle. Those be perfect. Yeah, just again.
And I think we'll probably demonstrate the why in our deliberations. Is that what you want to do?
Yes,
Chair?
absolutely. We'll be
Okay,
going over
brilliant.
that with a absolute big microscope. But also when staff respond to your submission, I think they'll make sure that there's plenty of detail in there so that you can understand the why.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Appreciate
for
you
your
coming
time.
along. So no other questions? Excellent.
One more
Thank you.
thing, thank you for listening. This is the first council that I've known to actually listen.
Oh, that's really
Thank you,
nice of you.
seriously.
Thank you. We try. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. And now I invite Jeffrey Boxall. Is he here? Hello. Welcome, Jeff. And you come and take a seat. I'm sure you heard about the instructions with the microphone and the 5-minute speaking time.
Before I actually address the council and need into my 5 minutes, can I ask your secretary to distribute these, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for your.
My name is Jeff Boxall. I've been a resident of Kihikihi for 54 years. I'm here representing 2 families of Boxall, one of Wolf Robertson and one of Ormsby. Council, I ask you to forget anything that the Waikato District Council, Waipa District Council's employees have said or written. They have shown expertise in misinformation, misuse of words, and psychologically misdirecting via emotive words and misleading wording in their questionnaires. I ask you to look at the map of Kiki, the whole of Kiki, not the shortened, edited map the employees have given you, because that excludes Kiki West and State Highway 3. Now consider yourself a resident of that village and see just how much the imposition of cul-de-sacs will affect you, increasing the distances you will have to travel, and consider the various increased emissions that your vehicle will generate. Consider the village and how its grid light system currently allows free movement and how the proposed cul-de-sacs will prevent that. The current situation spreads the load, whereas the proposed situation will change that on Herbert, Oliver, Hall, and the underdeveloped Sheehan Street, making them into the rat roads runs that Brian Hudson says that we've already got, and we haven't. See how the proposal will increase traffic actually passing Kihikihi School, both on Whitmore and Whitaker, and the south of the part of Whitmore Street. Forget the misused and emotive words used by WDC employees and look at what the actual facts are. Go and see where the driveways from houses are near the junctions of Hall and Whitaker, 1 metre and 7 metres. So there is no possibility of a pedestrian mall, let alone WDC's fruit trees, seats and play areas. Again, WDC's map is deliberately misleading in that it gives the impression of much greater space that could be traffic free. Go and observe how much traffic actually turns into or from Hall and Whitaker regarding Whitmore, rather than accepting any measures that WDC took using pressure pads, considering the inappropriate places that said pads were often placed. Consider the cost to an average family of the extra travel. Using average data on NZ fuel costs and vehicle efficiency, the current cost for 5 returned work trips at, say, 2.5, because you need to take both return journey into it, not the one-way journey that Brian has put to you. and it will cost at least $3.93 per week in fuel just at current costs. But most families have more than one vehicle and have many other travel requirements such as shopping, early childcare, school runs on wet days, church attendance, visiting sports, and other family members, etc. And that can easily double the cost, if not more. Now consider the other running costs, such as servicing, oil, tyre wear, and other parts. Inland revenue allows 79 cents per kilometre. So that would be $9.88 for the 5 work trips, to which has to be added other additional travel. And you'll find that some of the kihikihi families may now have to find $20 to $30 extra per week simply because of the cul-de-sacs. Realise that the claim that the cul-de-sacs will slow speeding on the streets can only be for the final block to a cul-de-sac, and that the cul-de-sacs will not actually prevent hoons doing donuts. Consider that very few children on the north side of Rolleston in Kihikihi, east of State Highway 3, will actually use the pathway for any distance before turning up Oliver, Whitaker or Hall. So they'll be using just 300 metres at the most. Then they need to do this to get to their homes on the other side streets. Those children living on the south side of Rolleston or in that part of Kihikihi west of State Highway 3 will not use it at all. Look at the other options of raised sections, automated bollards set to a timer for school opening and closing, or the much cheaper judder bars in a series of 2 or 3. Those options will prevent vehicles from exiting onto Whitmore at anything other than near stop, or if timed bollards were used, could prevent vehicles crossing the pathway when children are coming or going to school. Before the whole Kihikihi pathway program was created, did WDC undertake a census of the children at Kihikihi school and see where they actually live? Being a local resident, I know that many parents of local children send them to local rural schools such as Patarangi, Puhui, and Rotorangi. On this basis, I suspect that many of the children attending Kihi School are from outside the village, given the school's special character, and thus unlikely to use the pathway. In fact, did WDC conduct a survey to find out just how many children on the west of Rolleston and Rolleston Street itself actually attend Kihi School? If so, how many use Bryce or Grey Streets to access Whitaker and then Whitmore rather than using Rolleston to get to school? The cul-de-sacs and even the pathway are just virtual signalling, rather than being something that actually meets the needs of Kihikihi residents. Vanity is the driver of these proposals, not practicality. I have attached further critiques of this flawed plan to it that is going to impose what is basically a big city solution on a small village need, and I would like to table these for distribution later. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, Dale Marie.
Tēnā koe, Jeff, and thank you for your secondary.
Can you get nearer to the mic, please? I'm deaf.
Oh. Tēnā koe, Jeff. Thank you for your secondary submission today. Have you done a consultation with Kiki Primary and asked them where most of their children live to make this?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But it's observation. I live in Oliver Street by the school. And I know it has a special character because the new principal, when he came in, said that that's specifically what was going to happen.
The principal or the deputy?
Kiki School, yes.
I understand. That's
How familiar are you with Kiki School?
So Sunny West is the principal.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sunny West is a woman who is the principal at that school.
Well, it's a man who came in after the chap who moved to Hamilton Boys High. And that principal, that I know that I live backing onto the school and I know the special character of the school. I'm not criticising that. I'm just saying that it does make a difference to the number of children necessarily from the village attending the school.
Okay, it's just, I was just wondering, just because then that's hypothetical, because yeah, I thought you had consulted with the school to be talking about where the.
No.
Okay,
but it has definitely got a special character, and I know that's quite a few other people who may not feel comfortable with that do send their children to the rural schools.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jeff. You've given us a lot of information there, which we appreciate. Thank you very much for coming in today.
I'll pass it to you.
Yes, if you
Or the
give that to our
secretary can come
governance
collect.
team, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And now I have Judy Beasley. Is she here? Yes, Judy. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll have to raise my voice a bit more, but welcome, Judy. I'm pleased to see you here today. Yes, take a seat. You've got the microphone in front of you. You have 5 minutes and there will be a warning bell at 4 minutes. So, and I think that your submission is on our page 35 of our agenda. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Judy Beasley. I've lived on Hall Street since I was 7 years old when my father bought an acre of land on Hall Street. And I've been there continually since 86 when I bought a house on the same property. And I've seen all the changes that have gone on, not necessary to my liking, but the high density housing that the government and the council has adopted, I feel that Kiki's been sacrificed for high density. And while I'm not against the cul-de-sacs as such, I'm really worried about the flow of traffic on Rolleston and all the other streets because yes, the trucks, double-decker trucks are going through not only Rolleston, but Hall Street, even though we've got quite a steep hill on both ends of it, and it's really dangerous. And over the years, I don't know how any number of children have been killed on that road. And I'm now concerned of the Rochford Park, which is really well frequented, but it's created traffic flow on some occasions. Sometimes it's very quiet, but with parking on both sides of the roads on Hall Street, which is just down my driveway, I'm weaving through traffic. Like today, there was whānau who had a tangi on and the whole park of Rochford was taken over for 3 days. There was traffic on both sides, Bryce Street and Hall Street, and people and children on little bikes were just, it is an accident waiting to happen, especially when traveling cars coming down the hill, they just hoon down the hill straight past the park. And so the cul-de-sacs in some ways might help that. I think the flow of traffic is a real worry because it will slow things up. And my predecessor, the lady who went previously, forgot to say that what happens with the rubbish trucks when they go up along the Stockade Park towards Hall Street, which will be blocked off on Bryce Street. Where will they turn to get out? Like she said, ambulances and all that sort of thing. How will they turn? I'm very worried about the prospect of what's happening with Stockade Park, which my father was on the council on Kiki for many years, and he told me that that park and the designation of that park was a park and it shouldn't be ploughed, and it wasn't to be ploughed. But somehow council government has mandated that it be changed. So I'd like to know why it's been changed and how it's been changed in my letter. I won't go into those details, but the fact is that it has been changed without consultation. And I just worry that all this money's being spent on so-called cycleways when actually the big picture is Rochford Park, not Rochford Park, Stockade Park. And that I have rumours that has been going to be developed into a huge village, and that would mean more traffic, more utilities. I noticed there's an awful lot of pipes being laid at the moment, and there must be a bigger picture. And I'd like to know what is happening, why, what are you planning? And it all will, that those roads are quite dangerous. The traffic is increasing markedly. The big trucks are coming down Hall Street. The buses are coming down Hall Street. And why are there so many more trucks on Rolleston? Because they don't want to slow going through Kiki. And at the moment I'm forgetting what I'm going to say, but as I said, I'm against all this high density housing that I think you've sacrificed. Kiki, the government's allowed people to build 3-story houses in front of me, around me, put 2 or 3 units on a section, remove heritage houses. They're just being demolished or moved. And I think that there's, and things simple as trees, all the trees, the beautiful trees over 150 years old. in Kiki have gone to developments, and I don't think that all this traffic and all this other things is going to be helped by the cul-de-sac. Yes, it might help a few children getting to school, and quite frankly, at the moment, I'm more worried about them getting hurt on the road next to the park in Kiki at the moment. As I said, there was an awful lot of people there this weekend, and not that I have any problems with why they were there, it's just that there was so much traffic that you were weaving in and out. You can imagine at speed that's going to be with children, unescorted children going through. But so that's my
Look, thank you, Judy. I think we've really heard your messages today about the traffic, the level of traffic and safety on other streets, as well as the main cycleway route. You've raised some questions about the Stockade Reserve. Look, we'll make sure that the appropriate staff do get back to you with the details of it. I don't think the designation has been changed at the moment, but there is some conversation going on at present, but appreciate your comments today. Now, Roger, you've got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Judy, again, just acknowledging the challenge with speed and the concern of the residents. You mentioned the traffic and the trucks and the buses going down Hall Street. How do you consider that if there was a block off and a turnaround at the end, that would impact the level of traffic going down the street?
I don't know with slowing. I don't know if the slowing the traffic would be enough without the cul-de-sacs, or if the cul-de-sacs. But as people have said, I'm concerned as the flow. At the moment, yes, the traffic is freely flowing, but the massive growth in Kiki, every section is now accommodating 2 or more houses. And that is creating a lot more traffic. And if it's going to be stopped and people have to turn to come back, because a lot of new people won't know that that road's closed off. Big trucks like the rubbish truck and all the recycling trucks and all that sort of thing. How do they get down? They have to get down there, and how do they turn? All that sort of thing. That's it. But also the safety thing is, I mean, I'm not saying I'm against the cul-de-sacs. I just don't know if it's going to work.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Judy. Oh, sorry, Lou has got it. Just a moment, Judy. I'm sorry, Lou. I'm making a habit of ignoring Lou all the time.
It's great to hear what you're saying, and I can understand what you're saying quite a lot. I just want to make one comment. We as council did not set the criteria for infill. That was a national policy statement.
What's infill? What do you mean?
That's housing infill, the infill of housing, and the regulation.
That, yes. Yeah,
that's done by central government, which we had no control over whatever.
I know.
However, that is going to proceed, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, because it's not, they've taken that decision away from our local council.
Simple little people like us have no recourse, absolutely no recourse about people building high-rise around us. You know.
And I just wanted to ask you to accept also that the expansion of Waikeria, we're going to see quite a number of residences being required, whether in Kiki or Otahonga, for the new employees out there as well.
Well, of course, I'm of an age where I worked at Tokanui, and I know that the traffic and the people that worked at Tokanui, Waikeria, were instrumental in Kiki, and that's what it will increase again, and great. But I also think that the present government push for new housing is not going to help the people who are low income. They need assistance with fixed mortgages and 30-year, what we used to go back a step. And anyway,
just
that's
one
another
final
problem.
question. Do you accept that perhaps traffic calming is a really important issue?
Sorry?
Traffic calming, slowing the traffic down.
Slowing the traffic has always been a problem. I have seen so many near accidents every day. And I go down my drive and onto Hall Street down towards Bryce Street, and I look at the park seeing those lot of people are really enjoying that park. But I also know that there'll be a car could be roaring up behind me and would go down the hill, and that needs to be addressed. Maybe only having parking on one side of the road, opposite side to the park, so at least traffic has got an eye out to what's coming out through the bollards. But it's a really nice little park. Anyway.
Thank you, Judy. Really appreciate you coming in today and giving us your thoughts. Now we've got Alice Mason. Is she here today? No, she's not here. Okay. And then what about Sherry Ann Emery? Welcome, Sherry Ann. Kia ora. Yep. Take your seat there, and you've got the microphone in front of you and the green lights on, so that's great. And your submission is on page 32 of our agenda.
Kia ora te whananga mihi nui kia koutou i tēnei rā. My name's Sherry Ann Emery. I live on the corner of Hall and Whitmore, and I'm not happy about the cul-de-sacs. I don't see the point of them, to be fair. And I just want to touch on, I'll start with the first statement on the letter I got. Says, we're currently planning a new walking and cycle pathway that will help our tamariki and community get around Kihikihi easier and safer. The pathway will go down Rolleston, Whitmore and Oliver Streets. I don't see what that has to do with cul-de-sacs. It doesn't make sense to me. How can, for me, it's how does putting a cul-de-sac at the end of a road make it safer for our community? Slowing the traffic down would make it safer, in my head. Putting what do you call those things? Sorry, everyone else has been talking about them. Speed bumps to slow the traffic down would make our town safer. Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell for me.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you. We've definitely heard the message about safety and speed and things like that. I think with the cul-de-sacs, we'll have to address that in our response, when the staff send out their responses to your submissions. And I'm sure that we are going to be going into that in great detail this afternoon in our deliberations. Now, Dale Marie has got a
Sorry, I just had one more comment. Yes. And that was, the other thing that confused me was the cycle pathway seemed to me to be a separate issue to making our streets safer. Like that's celebrating people getting out and about, getting healthy and active, totally support that. But how does that make us safer? Putting that cycleway in and that pathway in, how does that make my town safer, my little village safer?
Yeah.
But slowing the traffic down well. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, Dale Marie, over to you.
E mihi ana kia koe, rāti rau kaua ki wharepuhunga I tai mai nei I tō kōrero me o whakaro rangatira mō etihi I roto I tō submission. Speed bumps, I hear that and I've heard that a lot. I only had my waipa inbox, I think about 3 days, and I probably had about 22 of you asking for speed bumps.
Right.
So we get that, Sherry Ann. There was another thing that I saw in your diverting of traffic, and I have to say, takuhuanga, that's part of the cul-de-sac plan, is that diverting of the traffic. So I only hope, though, that we get to be able to show some more reasoning behind some of this, because I think there has been a chunk of misunderstanding, because I can clearly hear things from the community about safety, the restriction of speed and stuff. But as I'll just let you know, as being part of being putting in a couple of cul-de-sacs while I was in Wellington, that did slow down speeders and it deterred them from actually going down those streets because they knew they were there. So I do understand and I do hear the themes that are going out there, but yeah, I think might be a good idea to have a kōrero with some of your other huanga that have also submitted in regards to the cycleway as well. So, ka nui te mihi kia koe.
Thank you. Really good to have you. Oh, sorry, Roger, you've got a question? Yes, take it away, Roger.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Sherry Ann. And believe you me, the speed issue has registered very strongly from the submitters that have come. Now, where did you say you lived?
I live on the corner of Hall and Whitmore.
That's what I thought.
So the
I've got that.
cul-de-sac will be right
Yeah.
outside my.
I've got that circled. And the development of a cycleway on the planned path will, we hope, increase the number of cycle and walker users, particularly during those high periods of school times and lunch times, etc. When it comes to the safety of that group of people that are really important, what is your opinion on the impact that the cul-de-sac will have on the fact that vehicles no longer will be trying to get through that cycleway and perhaps put the kiddies at risk?
Well, I personally think, why can't you put the cycleway down Herbert Street? If the intent was to go to the domain, wouldn't Herbert Street have been the better option? Because there's no roads on one side of Herbert Street. It's just driveways. So
Okay. We'll ask that question when we get into the deliberations. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, great comments. Thank you, Sherry Ann. Yeah. Kia ora. Okay, and now we have the Te Awamutu Kihiki Community Board, Ange Holt. She's not here at the moment. Yes, okay, so I think we might adjourn and have a break for lunch. No, just adjourn. Oh, okay. I'm always thinking of lunch. Yeah, all right. It's a good time for lunch. Okay, we're just going to adjourn. Sorry. Oh, sorry, no, he was a cancellation. Yeah, yeah. So we've gone through the list. And so we're just going to have a short adjournment for 10 minutes. So come back at 12:20. Yeah, thank you. Operation on this. So we have heard from the community board chair that she can't make it after all. So I just wanted to get you all back together and update you on that. And so we will now take a lunch break until 1 o'clock, where we will start our deliberations on this. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank all the submitters that came in this morning so that we got a chance, to understand your thinking and be, share your wisdom on what the right thing is to do for Kihikihi, and it's not just cycleways. So I think we've got that message. Anyway, thank you, everyone. So take a break now and we'll be back at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're just starting the live streaming. Excellent. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. You've had a good lunch break, and now we are back into the hearing for the Te Ara Limu Kihi pathway and pedestrian wall consultation. And I think I just want to let you know that we've still got a workshop after this. So we're going to try and complete this year within an hour or so that the workshop can start at 2 o'clock. Okay. So with that, I'm looking at the recommendations to start with, which are on page 8 of our agenda, because I've got a few updates. One is that second item B, the late submission wasn't late after all. Brian, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but yeah, that was the Te Umutu and Kihi Community Board submission.
Yes, correct, Madam Chair. It was received on time, but it was just in the processing from the inbox as it was into the system that made it appear late, but it wasn't at all. So we can remove that item B.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And the other thing I wanted to let you know was that Jeff Boxall stated that he was going to provide, he had more material, but there weren't sufficient copies to hand round to everyone. But I understand that material has been put into Diligent. So if you want to get into detail with that, I'm pretty sure he did cover off all of his issues though. But yeah, Jeff Boxall, and so yeah, there'll be an update. Oh no, but there was more additional. So it's Jeff Boxall additional in Diligent, tab 6. There you go. Excellent. Okay, so but we'll leave the rest of the recommendations at this stage, because I wanted to hand over now to Brian and Eric and your team to, I guess, summarise where we're at. And you've made a note of the submission points that people raised, and also we've got a summary as well of the points that were made through the written submissions. I thought we could go through those too, whether or not you want to go through the ones that are in our agenda. That's from page 10. Or if you just want to work off that list that you compiled as we heard from people.
Right, Madam Chair, probably good if we go through the ones in the report, because they will actually cover off probably 50 to 70% of the submissions. So in the report, actually, I don't have the same page numbering as you. But
okay, so that's on page 4 of your report.
Yep, we talk about the common themes raised.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
So we heard from many submitters, 45 submissions said that closing off some streets will increase traffic congestion on Herbert Street and Oliver Street. So staff have put traffic counters out on all of the roads. And so we've got accurate traffic counts of the traffic now. And then built a bit of a model, which you'll see in the appendices, showing with those cul-de-sacs closed off, where would that traffic likely redistribute to? And so the total volumes, and we talk about in those peak hours, because obviously people notice the traffic first thing in the morning and then later afternoon where people come home from work, but the rest of the day, there's not a lot of traffic around. So the PM peak is the worst, and that appendices shows that those traffic numbers redistributed is actually relatively small. So on a lot of those streets, people won't actually notice any significant change. Certainly Herbert Street and Oliver Street will get a bit more traffic. I think from memory, if I just pull up my appendices. Yeah, so in the peak afternoon hour in Herbert Street, the traffic volumes basically double, but they only go from 200 vehicles an hour in both directions up to 370 or so vehicles. And so that for a residential street is still relatively low in terms of, until you are getting to sort of 500 vehicles an hour in one direction, so 1,000 vehicles an hour overall, that's when you start to see those effects of congestion starting to happen. So They are quite low, and Oliver Street is even lower again than Herbert Street. So yeah, the good people of Kiki won't see, massive disruption or congestion as a result of this, of traffic redistributed. Obviously, over time, as Kiki grows and there are more residents, if everybody drives a car everywhere, then those numbers of vehicles would grow. But given the area that we're talking about, it's never likely to turn into a congestion type problem. Yeah, that's as much as I wanted to say about that item. I think certainly there is this concern about streets in Kiki that are quite narrow, only have curb and channel on one side, and that was raised by a number of people. And when there's cars parked, it can be narrow and they're weaving in and around parked vehicles. Not a bad thing when you want to keep speeds down, but I understand that if you don't have curb and channel and you get muddy shoulders and things on the side of the road, then that can become a nuisance. But within the long-term plan, there is a project in there to spend more money on Kiki to put in curb and channel and extra footpaths and things like that, recognising the growth of Kiki and the need to finish off those streets.
Brian, I'd just like to jump in there because I think this has also created a bit of concern for Kiki residents, because when we did that community consultation, for that urban development plan, like that curb and channeling, improving that sense of safety and slowing speeds down as well, that was probably a really high priority. And I guess because they've seen this consultation on this dual cycle way, they've thought that the other stuff's been forgotten or something, but it was just because we landed that surprise funding from central government through the SURF fund that we've actually been able to elevate this particular work, given it priority. And I think it'd be good to get some messaging out about that so people understand why this is the thing that's happening right now. It's number one, but it's more because the opportunity arose through the funding. Yeah, we haven't forgotten that other stuff.
Yes, that's quite correct, Madam Chair. And I guess with that extra funding, we're able to do much more than we would have been able to do otherwise. So, around those themes of particularly speed of traffic. So the design here, key for particularly Whitmore Street and Rolleston Street, very wide streets that are sort of 10, 11 or 12 metres wide. And because there's seldom parking on the sides of the road, you're presented with this big sort of urban street, which does encourage higher speeds. So as a result of this planned cycleway work, the street actually gets narrowed up to, I think, 7 metres, 7 or 7.5 metres. So it actually removes, some of that space and narrows it up, plus the intersections at each end, the roundabouts at Rolleston Street, the speed tables and things like that. It really does create a slower speed environment for all traffic. So staff have been mindful of, during this design process, how do we provide those lower speeds that Kiki residents want? So we are quite confident that the works plan for Oliver, Whitmore and Rolleston Street will create a slower speed environment. Some of the other issues raised was around emergency services and have they been consulted and what were their responses. So certainly the team consulted with St John Ambulance, Fire Service and Police. While they haven't made formal submissions to the cul-de-sacs, their feedback was certainly built into the design. The Fire Service were interested to see that that the roads were wide enough that cars wouldn't be parked blocking roads up, and hence why there is plenty of indented parking on both Rolleston, Whitmore and Oliver to create those parking spaces. So there's always 2 traffic lanes free. The Fire Service and others, their main points of the consultation we had with them and our responses are included in the paper here. And I think we have, responded quite well, hence the fire service and others haven't felt a need to, put in formal submissions.
On that point, Brian, we also had some queries about the recycling and rubbish trucks. So are you confident that they will still be able to negotiate those streets? Obviously, they're going to other parts of the district that have cul-de-sacs and that, but perhaps there were concerns that the Kihikihi situation, the streets are a bit narrower or something?
Right, so I guess those recycling and rubbish trucks are there on those streets now. We have consulted with the providers and shown them the plans and things. They are obviously interested in cul-de-sac heads that allow them to turn around smoothly, which we've provided in the design. So yeah, certainly they need to often change their routing of trucks because with some streets closed off, they've got to do some more loops about, but certainly there's no concerns from them in being able to operationally service the township with these changes. Yeah. We heard from a number of submitters who said, well, instead of breaking up the flow of traffic around Kiki, could council not just put in speed tables or bumps instead? And so certainly with the design process, we've been very mindful of where it's appropriate to put speed tables or bumps and where it's not. So you'll see Rolleston Street and Whitmore Street, which are the main traffic streets. They have these speed tables at the roundabouts and at the Rolleston-Whitmore intersection, so that it slows the speed down for both safety at the intersections, but also safety of pedestrians and cyclists crossing those intersections. And then elsewhere, we use the cul-de-sacs where the impact of closing off a street is a lot less. So we have got that mix of the two treatments to provide the overall outcome that is sought. We are, I guess there's certainly opportunity for other speed tables or speed humps around the village and other places, if that will, on some of those other streets create slower speed environment if residents do have concern. It's interesting that around speed, it doesn't matter where you live in the district, which town or which area of the countryside, people, do have people speeding on their street, and they'll always hear some, and it's often late at night when they're out and they wind it up with loud exhaust and things like that. So it does happen. And I guess there is a limit to how many speed control devices council can put around the district. But by, targeting these streets and creating this environment on those in those places where the majority of the vulnerable road users are, and the crossing points, I think we've got the right balance for both allowing traffic to flow and meeting the needs of vulnerable road users.
Allow me to interrupt. It does seem to me that the plan will provide traffic calming on bulk of the streets. It just strikes me as possible that Herbert Street, name eluded me for a moment, may well be one that, but I guess that's a wait and see type of issue, isn't it? And, that seems to be one Boy Race's target at the moment, and apart from that roundabout with Rolleston, it's still going to be pretty open to those characters.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
And I've got a question from Roger.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Brian. One of the things, as you've already acknowledged, was the predominance of submissions that were concerned with speed. And you've just acknowledged that. You've mentioned that, in fact, the roundabout at the north and the res platform at the south of Rolleston Street should be sufficient to create a lower speed environment. Subsequent to us doing that, is there the opportunity to consider whether in fact those speed mitigations have been sufficient and adequate to remove. Because my perception of, in terms of what we're doing in putting speed bumps around, I mean, they're a separate attachment that's put actually into the road. So it's not as if we've got to put a huge amount of development cost into putting the speed bumps in. Is there the opportunity to add additional speed mitigations into Rolleston Street, should they be required?
Yeah, good point. What I'd like to do is, to build the scheme, and we would do the monitoring again with the traffic counters that measure speed, because what we're looking for is that overall the typical speeds, the average speeds drop. We know that we can have a lot of measures, but we'll still get a handful of hooligans. That doesn't matter what you do on the street, they will still break the law, and we hope the police will catch them, because you can have speed bumps and things, but you can have people who will still roar down the street as a competition to see how fast they can travel over the speed bumps. So, but if we're getting the average speed down, say if we measured the speed now and it's 55 kilometres an hour average speed, and when we've finished the work, if it's 45, we know we've succeeded in getting the typical speeds.
Agreed. Yep. But if it wasn't, then there was always the added mitigation that we can put in. That's good. That answers my question. Thanks.
Thank you. And then I've got a question here from Lou and then Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I was actually thinking quite seriously, we would mitigate the 45 submissions about the increased traffic volumes by stating that we're putting a bus service in the with an hourly turnaround that is operating from Kiki to Te Amutu and through to Hamilton, which would mean that quite a number of the persons residing in that area would be able to use that bus service, and probably to the advantage of cost as well. So, and having it rotating on an hourly basis means that this service could be quite a large mitigation for those people worried about the increased traffic volumes at those certain intersections, such as Herbert Street and down on Rolleston Street, etc. I just wondered whether we should actually advertise that at the time that we're doing this, and say that the service would be available in the very near future.
Yep, very good. Yes, certainly there'll be a big promotion of the new bus service when it starts in 2024. And certainly this is a package. It's a package for those alternative modes of transport, buses, walking and cycling. And so, yeah, hence the design has got those much better standard bus stops that are, accessible with people, for people with disabilities and all. So it certainly is a package that should, this is what we're about, is reducing the need for everybody to own a car and drive everywhere as part of this work.
We could tell them that there'll be new double-decker buses as well.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
Sorry, through the chair. Also, I picked up some points in the readings here around it only takes such a minute speed reduction to severely reduce incidents of accidents, either not so much fatal or fatal as well, but sort of those lower level accidents that even 1 kilometre, it's stated, reduces accidents by 2% and severe accidents by, I think, 4%. But things like 5 and 10 Ks of drop off, it just has such a big impact on people not getting injured because of that extra time. And so it's really good that we are looking at narrowing up some of these streets that in themselves will reduce speed. So even by almost not doing anything outside the scope, like on Rolleston Street, I think it'll be a much safer street just in itself.
Right, Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So other concerns raised about large trucks that run through the village. So we have certainly heard that from a number of, submitters, but also in the past from residents in Kiki about large trucks. So we know Kiki, being positioned where it is, with a large rural area around it, and some roads, likes of Herbert Street, is used by stock trucks and dairy tankers. And that's simply because that's the only route they can use to get to the east side of Kiki and some of those roads that connect in there. So we expect that will still happen. And so the roundabouts are designed to allow a truck and trailer to get through. They must be able to continue to do business. But we certainly don't want large trucks being able to detour through any street of Kiki, and that route particularly, which is Cambridge Road, Golf Road, Flat Road, Rolleston Street, Sheehan Street, and then out onto the State Highway, is something that we definitely want to discourage. Hazel Barnes, as a councillor, raised it a few times with those large trucks travelling past her, and that's simply because the GPS and the truck says that that is the shortest route, and they know that it's easier to travel that way sometimes than to try and get onto State Highway 3 at the Golf Road intersection or at Whitmore Street. So they are, taking those alternate routes. So this scheme does, with the cul-de-sac at Rolleston Street, it deliberately cuts off that route, and the roundabout again at Herbert Street makes it less attractive. So we certainly are mindful and want to prevent that nuisance truck traffic through Kiki. Yeah, there were questions around, does a separated cycle path make it safer for children? So we know at the moment there are definitely children leaving the school on bicycles and scooters, arriving and leaving the school every day. And so we know that having a separated cycleway, so they're not on a footpath close to vehicle entrances, or they're not crossing too many streets, or if they are crossing a street, it's either a cul-de-sac or a very safe crossing point. We know they're going to be much safer. And I guess a number of submitters, because this will be their first experience or, coming into an understanding of this type of infrastructure, there's bound to be some misunderstanding. And we saw it the same in Cambridge, where we proposed the Hamilton Road cycleway, the separated cycleway, where people thought actually it might be more hazardous or more hazard at vehicle entrances and things like that. And once people get to experience it, they find, well, actually, this is pretty cool. And it's the sort of infrastructure they want council to build. So I think it is an education thing. And once people have seen it and have used it, a lot of those concerns about safety disappear. There was a question there about why is the cycleway not going down Herbert Street? And that supposes that the main users of the cycleway would be people coming from Te Amutu who are going to leave Flat Road, travel down Herbert Street and go to the Domain. So the urban mobility business case was very deliberate around choosing the main cycle routes for Kiki, and it's around linking the main destinations that people would want to walk or cycle to or get to the bus stops. And that very much is Whitmore Street, because you've got the school and up into the shopping centre and the main bus route. So Whitmore Street is the prime candidate for the main cycleway. And then Rolleston Street links Whitmore Street to the Flat Road cycleway into Te Amutu. And of course, Oliver Street, not only does it link to the Domain, but it then provides opportunity for those who are coming out of the side streets onto Oliver Street to come down to the bus stops and to the school. So it is well worked out. And then there was some comment there about, well, what are we doing for the west side of Kiki? Because we've got the State Highway in between, and will the people on the west side of Kiki be able to use the cycleway to get to school or to the park or the Domain? So we're very conscious of that. We've started discussions with Waka Kotahi about where would be the best place to cross the highway, what sort of facility, with the knowledge that this is just the first step for Kiki. While it satisfies a really large part of the demand, we still need to connect up that west side of the village as well. I think I have covered most of the main points. Is there anything else that I've missed there, Eric?
I've got a couple of things that I made a note of. Firstly, there was the parking around the playground, so obviously not directly related to the cycleway itself, but it'd be good, I think, for us to respond about these identified concern about, the high use that's happening at that park and a safe parking solution for that. And also about whether you might have addressed it, that Rolleston Street is losing quite a bit of parking. Is there going to be enough there, or how are we going to manage that? Those are the 2 points that came through. Yes.
Yep, certainly I acknowledge that that play area needs some parking because I understand it has got quite muddy. So I think that's something that the transport team and the Parks and Reserves team could look at pretty early on, and let's see if we can't, even if we can't make a fully designed and surfaced car park straight away, could we put something temporary in that would allow vehicles to get off the road and to get rid of the mud? So I think, that's something we could do pretty much straight away. Then Rolleston Street, certainly there is quite a number of parking bays provided down Rolleston Street. And if you travel Rolleston Street, most of the time you'll see very little parking at the side of the road. But the parking that is provided, 15 spaces spread along the length of the street, is going to be more than adequate for the normal situations. And people can always park in some of the side streets there as well. We've got Short Street and Galloway Street as well, if they're near those intersections. There was a question about, well, why is the cycleway on the east side of Rolleston Street and not the west side? That was a question. Really, there's good reasons for that. There's a lot of power poles and other utilities on the western side that would make the pathway more difficult to build. But it does lend itself to connecting up the likes of Bryce Street and Grey Street for the residents there into. So there's sort of more of a catchment coming from that way who can get onto the cycle path directly without having to cross the street. But and for part of it, beside the domain there, the Stockade Reserve, again, there is a long length where no residents are affected by the construction of a cycleway.
There's also quite a few comments that we don't understand why you're even thinking about cul-de-sacs. So there seemed to be a bit of a gap in the information that was given. And I understand there were reasons possibly why that happened. So in our decision, I think we need to cover that off about why cul-de-sacs are seen as either best practice or certainly the most desirable for the outcomes we're trying to achieve. Or can you comment on why you think so many submitters didn't even understand the whole concept behind the cul-de-sacs?
Yeah, certainly in the consultation material that was prepared, and so there's quite a booklet here which does explain quite well the purpose, the benefits of having cul-de-sacs, and so I think that was distributed to all of the residents. Was it, Eric? No. Well, not all of the residents in Kiki, but all the ones directly affected. Yeah,
actually.
Victoria.
That was more just our offices, wasn't it?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah, certainly all the people directly impacted were given letters sort of explaining the project and everything and where to get more information and the drop-in sessions, all of that sort of thing. So yeah, why cul-de-sacs? Certainly. The Hamilton Road example is really good in terms of minimising the traffic crossing the cycleway, having longer lengths where the cyclists and pedestrians have got that freedom to cycle and not be needing to look out for traffic is really good. It certainly creates a much safer cycleway, and when you see the age of the children who are walking and cycling to school in Kiki, they're quite young children. And so this definitely provides the safest option for them. Yes, we can create intersections which are narrow and have speed tables, but still, we know from our experience in in Cambridge and Hamilton Road, that where we've got those exits out over the cycleway and they're quite constrained, that people still will zap out of those and not give way to people on the cycleway when they should. So it does create that potential conflict that if we can avoid that, then we should as much as possible. But those issues of quieter streets, lower vehicle speeds in those streets, the less chance of accidents, and certainly excluding heavy vehicles from taking streets that they shouldn't do. There's lots of benefits there that over just throttling up the intersection.
A question from Mike.
Yeah, through the chair, and just to support what Brian said there, you know, some of those streets in Cambridge we've done, instead of cul-de-sac at the end of them, we've sort of one-wayed them. But, you know, you'll agree, Brian, that at times you do get idiots that will just go simply over them the wrong way. So they're actually going against the traffic illegally. But it's impossible to police. So by having a cul-de-sac where there's actually not an option to do that, you know, it does make it a heck of a lot safer. Because those people who do that, they're focused on not being caught. They're really not focused on the pedestrian side of it or the cycleway side of it. They're just trying to get their vehicle illegally through that street.
Thanks. Thanks, Claire. Yeah, I guess Mike's answered my question in a way. I was going to ask if there were any cul-de-sacs on that Cambridge Road treatment, but the answer seems to be no. They're all, yeah. Okay, so look, as I've mentioned to a couple of you over the last few weeks, at the end of June, I attended Walking Summit in Christchurch, and while what we're talking about here was only a very small part of that summit, it was very interesting. And one of the speakers who lived in Christchurch, sort of coincidentally, his where he lived was turned into a cul-de-sac, actually while council was redoing some waterworks. And his observation was it changed the character of his street in a very positive way. Obviously traffic calming, when your street's closed off, the people driving to their homes, they drive relatively slowly anyway, but there's no through traffic whizzing past. And you know, the kids turned it into a play area, it became a social area, very positive, you know, outcomes from that happening. So no question in my mind at all about the safety of the cycleway, but I think also potentially very positive outcomes for the people living in those cul-de-sacs. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Lou?
Put your question, Brian. On Whitmore Street, just next to Whitaker Street, you've got a pedestrian crossing going from the cycleway over to the Kiki School. Is that a controlled intersection? Is that going to be a controlled footpath with the, you know, the amount of traffic that comes through on Whitmore? Would that be a controlled area? Because you've got a bus stop right next to it.
Yeah.
It is controlled.
Yes.
Is it signalised? So
controlled.
yeah, it'll be lights. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, it just doesn't display it here on the map, but that was one thing we talked about at Urban Mobility, that was quite a critical one. The second thing I wanted to raise with everyone was that we had Eric come out and speak to the Residents and Ratepayers Association in Kiki, and we got a very positive response. Well, Eric, you can virtually guarantee what I'm saying here, that the majority of the people in that community felt that this was a very positive move. And, you know, if we can link that side of Kiki along with this new intersections and this new concept, I think we'd have a big positive for the whole area.
So do you feel that you've covered all those points then? Is that where you're at the moment, Brian?
I'm just scanning down my notes quickly.
I think you have.
Yes.
So I think several of the submitters I think the last 2 or 3 talked about the, why have cul-de-sacs and stuff. And I think that was discussed in the scenario of a car driver. So if you're a car driver, you would think, why is there a cul-de-sac? But if you're a pedestrian or a cyclist, it's really obvious. So I think it's what perception lens you're using as to what you aspire to.
Yeah, thanks for that, Eric. In fact, just on that, like when Brian introduced this whole session, he mentioned the transportation strategy, where we've prioritised active modes and things like that. That's where we're going to be sort of focusing our attention to trying to, do more of that. So it really aligns well. Yeah, I suppose more cul-de-sacs and shared paths. Yes, Marcus.
Yeah, well, this is my community, which I live in and travel these streets daily. I think this is a bold move for the growth of Kiki. As we heard from Nick, it's going to change the feel of the community. It's going to be, there's going to be no through traffic. It's going to be safer. It's going to be great for people to use the streets. And I think, the boy racer problem, if that happens, that we could look at that, later on, because it would be really easy to put cameras on those spaces to monitor traffic going in and out. But yeah, I think this is fantastic. It's the next step in the evolution of Kiki, and also the package of works that the school is going to benefit from as well, with the bike skills, kids on bikes programs and things that are going to be rolled out as part of this, and getting more families involved with cycling and kids on bikes. It's going to have a real beneficial impact. So yeah, I mean, I'd be quite happy to move the recommendation.
Well, thanks, Marcus. I'll bear that in mind. I thought we could have a bit more discussion. I was really hoping that I could have some comment from the urban mobility group, actually, because they didn't make any formal submissions, and we kind of haven't heard from them in any detail. But you, Marcus, you're on that, and so is Lou.
Mobility, I mean, this has been well workshopped and talked over and discussed, and Mike's on it and Liz is on it. And we have Rogers on. I mean, there's a lot of people here on it, and I think it's all had a lot of favour. And it's about time that I don't want to do the them and us thing, but it's quite nice actually seeing a major project over here instead of $500,000 on a clock tower. We'll grab a cycle, eh?
Okay, Lou would like to say something. Hopefully not about the clock tower.
I totally concur with Councillor Gower on this one, in the fact that we did ably go out and discuss this with an urban mobility group, and we did that with the public. We had representatives that came along and spoke, some prior, some were against, but the majority could see the result of this and moving it forward. And I think that the one thing that we must not do is just consider pedestrians and cyclists. Don't forget all the electronic vehicles that are coming up now, e-scooters, for example, becoming more and more prolific around town over the next few years. So people will look at different modes as things go on, and we adjust to the environment we're in. So I think this is a big positive, but we discussed pretty much this very, very carefully with 2 different groups virtually. We had the governance group and we had the initial group of concerned citizens or citizens that were nominated to come on board. So I think we did this pretty ably. And Roger, you were involved in that, along with me, with the Cambridge Connections, etc. And I think we developed this in a very, very positive manner. So I would say and agree with Councillor Gower, we have really covered this, I think, quite ably.
Thanks. Then I've got Roger.
Yes, Marcus, I'm very pleased that you're happy that this is coming to your neck of the woods. Extremely. That's very good. But considering that this consultation was towards the development of pedestrian malls and cul-de-sacs, I don't know what anybody else heard, but I was actually quite surprised at the lack of any submission against the malls. There was a couple of mentions, but the majority of submissions were against other aspects, speed, parking, etc. I was quite surprised because I thought we would have had some quite strong lobbies against the concepts of the miles from the people that were there. I didn't hear any of that strength of objection coming. A couple of mentions, but I didn't hear any strong objections to it. So I was quite pleased to hear that.
Thanks. Now I've got Andrew and then Mike and then Susan.
Yeah, look, I agree with you on that, Roger, actually. But I just wanted to reiterate the point that Eric has made. The people who were objecting to the cul-de-sacs, I think, were absolutely looking at it from the point of view of driving, not at all from the point of view of being a pedestrian or using that as a living space. Yeah. So yeah, but again, I agree with you. There wasn't really a lot of people objecting to cul-de-sacs. More the comments were about the traffic flow, and saying, oh, I'm not actually against cul-de-sacs, but the traffic flow is a concern or whatever. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the chair. So yeah, I sit on that reference group along with some others. And hey, what I think as the staff have really got right here is opening up that working group, which I guess was more sort of community involvement. And then that sort of ran its course. But all the feedback over those meetings was sort of fed in, and there was a lot of chopping, changing, challenging to get to a stage that we're at now. So it didn't just happen by staff or by the community or by council. It really was a corroboration. So I think you got that really spot on. And then the governance group sort of, took the last sort of bit over, probably more with the staff, but it was really just to cement all the feedback. And then with the public submissions, and this is really the last bit of it, I'm actually really happy with the process. And I guess looking forward, I think we've created a really good model to go to the next processes, because this is just an ongoing part of a big jigsaw. So yeah, well done to the staff for organising what you did and the way you did it.
Yeah, thanks for those positive comments, actually, Mike, because it's been quite a process. Now I've got Liz over. Oh, sorry, is it Susan and then Liz? Sorry.
Thank you. Look, I just wanted firstly to acknowledge that there will be a bit of inconvenience to a few. I think we can't, pretend that there won't be. People have patterns the way they live and the way they like to do things. So there will be inconvenience. I totally accept that, and I think as an elected membership would be foolish of us not to acknowledge that. But I really think that, and I'm actually going to quote Marcus here, that this is part of an evolution for Kihikihi, right? And that was set in train in 2021 when the community supported the Kihikihi Urban Development Plan. This is one piece of that, which Claire quite rightly pointed out, has been sort of jettisoned ahead of time, probably slightly out of sequence, because there are all these other issues around speed and safety. But if you go and look at the Kihikihi Urban Development Plan in the movement section of 4.2, it's one of the pieces in here, along with all the other things that the good people of Kihikihi raised with us today. So I think some of this is just a little bit out of sync and out of timing, but that given we've been gifted the money, I don't think that's a reason to not do it. So look, I just want to acknowledge that this is part of that bigger picture that we have huge support from our community on in Kihikihi, along with the earlier support we got overwhelmingly for the actual cycleway, because you've got to remember this is the sort of the other side of that coin, so to speak. So yeah, acknowledging the change and the impact that change may have on a few people in Kihikihi. I don't mean to minimise that, but I think we just have to take a step back and look at the overall support we had for that whole evolution of Kihikihi going forward. So look, I'm more than happy to support this, and I look forward to seeing progress on some of the other issues, and in particular the speed issues, which I know residents have communicated their concerns about with me for some years, and I'm sure Marcus is no stranger to those complaints as well, because that's sort of the handshake to this, right? You don't want to, in fixing one problem, create another. So we just have to make sure we don't forget about that part of it. But I'm comfortable with this, and also acknowledge Roger's comments. A lot of this comments and submission wasn't an outright hatred of it. It was more a concern about what the impact might be in terms of traffic flows. So yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you, Susan. And Liz?
No, look, this has been quite a journey, of course. When we knew that we were able to well, when we were successful with the surf funding, this has created a real opportunity and future-proofing Kiki. So I was probably hoping that the community would be a little bit more excited by the idea. So we've had a challenging few months, to say the least, but this is a change. I absolutely agree with everything you've said, Susan, but it will make Kiki a more attractive place to live, you know, as well. So it's always about bringing new things to a town. It's going to grow. There's no question around that. And we're enabling, and what we're hoping to create, of course, is a really great community and a sense of community. So the cul-de-sacs are just one piece of that puzzle. So thank you to the team for everything you have done. The Urban Mobility Group Committee was, you know, I think I really have enjoyed the process around this, and I think it's a good model for other projects going forward as well.
Yes.
Can I just add to that? Nick Murphy's description about his son being able to play and kick a ball around with other kids around in the safety of a cul-de-sac kind of shed a whole different layer of understanding of what this could look like for me going forward, because I just thought about the cycleway and protecting children on that. I kind of hadn't really thought of the other side of the dial. So yeah, some interesting insights from people's minds, but yeah, Nick Murphy and his kid kicking the ball around, what a winner.
Yeah, like I suppose sort of making an observation that the voices we've heard today that have been against it, they've really been, I think, focused on the impact, I guess, at a personal level and an immediate level, where I think we need to take a longer term view, like thinking about the future generations and, you know, like that community we want to see created. To steal a term, you know, be good ancestors, you know, so I think, yeah, that's the balancing act that I'm sort of working on in my mind. So look, I'm wanting to wrap up the discussion. Brian and Eric have done a good job of covering off the points they thought that came through the hearing. Is there any other aspect that anyone feels hasn't been addressed or that they'd just like to raise now before we get into the nitty-gritty of the recommendations? You all happy? Excellent, that's great. And I'd just like to congratulate the team too, actually, at this point as well, to get to this stage where, you know, we can be looking at the decision-making part. Really appreciate the commitment, and yeah, I guess, you know, it's taken a bit of perseverance and patience in that. So it's great to be at this point. And, you know, the plans, they look amazing. Yeah, so we'll just see how far we get through the recommendations. So I'm looking at page 8 of our agenda, and I think Jo is going to share her screen. She's got it up there because we've got an amendment, so that's going to change some of the wording. All right, so are we going to just go through the whole lot and do one mover and seconder, or do you want to do it in stages? Do the whole lot? Okay, all right, Marcus. So let's do the whole lot. So yeah, I'm not going to read it out. So what have we got there, Andrew? Oh, you're just going to second it. All right. So I've got a mover with Marcus and a seconder with Andrew. I hope I'm not rushing you, but it does mean that by the looks of it, we'd actually support the plan in its entirety with no changes, basically. Okay, so that's what's on the table. All right. So I've got a mover and a seconder. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Wonderful.
I think this is a really big project, I think, and I think it's really awesome. And thanks very much, Eric. Especially, like, you've done heaps of work on this, and, like, you know, working with the school and working with everybody and stuff, and you've been really awesome and on top of this project. And yeah, give them a rise, Brian.
Yeah, wow. No, that's fantastic. Yeah. Don't forget Eric. Big smiles there.